Good morning, everybody. I just went to the barber's, um, and it's interesting because I mean, for a long time I didn't go to the barber's. I guess a lot of people these days would, uh, cut their hair at home, or maybe you've got a family member or somebody who would do that for you. And also, a lot of people have got shorter hairstyles. Um, but I think I mean, for me, I like to look, reasonably presentable for work because I have to work with sort of professional people, and I think that's good. But also, I think going to the barbers is just an interesting experience, and I think there's just something about it that has a similar kind of connection to sort of previous times, in the same way that smoking pipes does. And certainly, as a boy, I remember going with my dad. We used to go, I think, probably every week. He would go into the sort of nearby town to have his hair cut, and the barber knew him, and the barber's son knew him. And as a kid, as a boy, they used to put a board across the two arms of the barber's chair, so that you were up high enough so that you could see in the mirror, and so you were at a height where they could cut your hair. And it was a kind of a gauge, I think, of becoming a man, if you like, when you got to the point where you didn't need the board. Now that was a big deal, and that was when you were a big boy, or you'd kind of join the men or become an adult, because you could sit in the actual barber's chair, and it had the bar on the bottom, and you used to jack the chair up so that you'd be at the right height in the mirror and all that kind of stuff. And it just was kind of one of those rites of passage. But I think a bit like the old tobacco shops that I remember. The barber shops were places where um, dads with their kids, with their sons, and men would go and would smoke cigarettes and smoke pipes. I am going back a few years, bear in mind, okay? So, not in the current climate that we have, which is very prohibitive of that. But I do remember it, and that event, that experience of going to the barbers was kind of a big deal. It was a big deal. And it's just interesting going back to the barbers now and seeing how modern barbershops are very different. It's a very different thing, but it's nice when you get a traditional barber. And the barber that I go and see, he comes from northeastern Iraq, and he's an interesting guy. And he still uses things like the cutthroat razor to trim around the edges of the hair. And for a long time, when I was living in London, I went to the same barber for years and years and years, in Camberwell Green in London, and he was Greek, and he was a character because he used to use a straight razor, cutthroat razor as we call it, and he would be shaving you or whatever, or the hairs on the back of your neck or under your chin or whatever it was, while he was placing a bet on the horses with his bookie through the window. Now you try, well, I'll tell you what, you keep perfectly still, that's for sure, when somebody's got a cutthroat razor on your neck, and they're doing that. But I remember him, and I went to him for years, and he retired and sadly died quite a few years ago now. And I just thought it was a kind of an interesting thing, and I just wondered what other people's experience was. Of going to barber shops. I mean, they're traditionally kind of places where guys meet up. If you ever go into a city, if you go into somewhere like London now and go to certain parts of London where you've got sort of you know, lots of barber shops, you will find them full of people in the evenings, and they are meeting places. They are places for people to meet, and it's a very social kind of thing. And it's really nice to see that. It's nice to see that sort of element of culture, I think, that still sort of exists. So I'd be very curious to know what you know, people's experiences of barbers now. You know, do they still exist, or do you have to go to a hairdresser's or something with a dreadful name like Hair Katek or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, speaking of barbershops and kind of, you know, loads of guys meeting up and smoking pipes, I'm smoking me big chunky Savinelli 320, so it seems appropriate somehow. Anyway, this is on the fly. I just thought I'd do this because I had a moment and I just needed to sit down and take a break. And I'll leave you all in peace, and I'll talk soon.